In this Ooni Koda 16 pizza oven review, I'm going to be providing you some insight into this new portable pizza oven, so you can learn if it's really good enough for your needs or not. Now please be sure you watch this entire video, as I'm going to go into the pros and cons of this newer Koda model pizza oven from Ooni. And at the end of the video, if you still want to get the Ooni Koda 16, I'll provide details on where to get it and for the best possible price. So here's the pros of this new Ooni portable pizza oven. Design. The Ooni Koda 16 has a nice slick design and is constructed with a milled steel powder coated shell and a cast aluminium nose cone. This small pizza oven is attractive on the eye with its curved design and excellent choice of build materials. The design and build quality of the Koda 16 also makes it very easy to keep clean and allows it to maintain its good looks over time. Insulation. The Koda 16 features 20mm insulation all around the top shell, which works to efficiently keep the heat inside the oven while cooking, and makes for faster cooking times and better pizzas. Flame control. On the left-hand side of the Koda 16, you'll find an easy-to-use flame control dial, which allows for ultra-hot and fast cooking times. You can also turn it down to a small flame to cook your pizzas quite slowly if desired. Ability to cook larger sized pizzas. As the name suggests, the Koda 16 can cook all the way up to 16-inch pizza bases, and this is one of the features that sets it apart from other small portable pizza oven models. Great temperature range. With up to 932°F cooking temperatures, the Koda 16 allows for super fast cooking times, and you can cook most pizzas in around 90 to 120 seconds. Simplified setup and storage. The Ooni Koda 16 is easy to assemble and set up, it's easy to clean down, and its smaller size means it fits on top of most outdoor tables and barbecue tables. Its small size and the fact that it's so portable means that it is quite easily moved by two people. One strong person could move it themselves without too much hassle. Propane gas source. With the fuel source for the Koda 16 being propane gas, it's able to provide a consistent distribution of flame temperature, and this gives it the ability to cook pizzas very evenly. Rock solid design for sturdiness. The Koda 16 has a very stable and solid design, which means the unit will not move easily once placed on your outdoor table, etc. So what about the cons? Here's a quick look at the cons of the Koda 16 portable pizza oven. Some cooking restrictions. The Ooni Koda 16, being mainly designed as a pizza oven, is a bit limited by height, which stops you cooking some taller breads and other things that simply won't fit into the low height area of the Koda 16. That being said, there's a great variety of different things that can be cooked using the powerful flames of the Koda 16, including flame-grilled steak, chicken, and all other varieties of cooked meats, flame-grilled vegetables, and the list goes on. L-shaped flame. The design of the flame itself is not necessarily a con, but it does mean that you have to rotate your pizza as it cooks. This is easy to do with a peel though, and shouldn't create any big issues. Additional accessories. The pizza peel and storage bag don't come with the Ooni Koda 16 pizza oven, and a peel is essential for cooking your pizzas, so you will need one. It would be nice if Ooni had included the peel and storage bag with the main product, but in this case you will have to purchase these items additionally. It's recommended that you get yourself a 14-inch peel if you don't already have one, as this is the ideal peel size. To summarize, the Ooni Koda 16 pizza oven offers an attractive and incredibly effective home and portable pizza oven at a reasonable price. Not only will you and your family have a great time getting creative and making delicious pizzas, but in the long term, having your own pizza oven to create authentic tasting, high quality pizzas from the comfort of your own home will save you a ton of money. Just the response to the Koda 16 pizza oven speaks volumes for itself. Now, if you want to get the Ooni Koda 16 for the absolute best possible price, and you're currently seeing this video on YouTube, then simply click the link below this video in the description, and you'll be taken to the very best place to purchase it. Now, if you can't see the link in the description, you can also enter the following URL into your web browser: futuretechreviews.me/Koda16. Thanks for watching this Ooni Koda 16 pizza oven review.